The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 8 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, Anon Optics, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Find an Epic Agent Worldwide Real Estate, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Tribute Board Shop is a snowboarding cultural hub in Nelson, BC, the heart of the Powder Highway. Tribute's experienced shop staff make every visit amazing, and you'll love your new high-performance snowboarding gear. As a destination, Nelson should be on every FNRad listener's bucket list, and the only shop you need to visit in Nelson is Tribute. You can check out a selection of what's available at tributeboardshop.ca, but remember, there's always much more in the store. Brick-and-mortar stores built snowboarding, and the shop experience has deep roots in snowboard culture. If you live in Nelson or the surrounding area, or if you're visiting to take advantage of their amazing snow, get yourself some gear from Tribute and support an amazing snowboard shop run by snowboarders. Support also comes from Dakine, Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, Pro Standard GoPro accessories, and Volcom Outerwear. As you'll hear in this episode, the likes, follows, and shares help listeners find FNRad. Thank you for doing your part. Special thanks this episode to Beneath Underwear. This place's awesome vacation rentals in Whistler, Stinky Socks, Death Label Snowboards, and Tomahawk Indigenous products. Andrew Brewer is the second pro snowboarder with that name to have a successful pro career. He's had magazine covers and video parts, and his street skills are super sick. Andrew rides for Death Label Snowboards. He's the guy behind Board Dungeon, a kind of snowboard collector's dream, a thrift store where you can buy cool, rare boards and even pros' old actual boards. Lately, he's a co-host and producer on the Unstrapped YouTube show. Andrew's a big advocate for the voice of snowboarding on YouTube being in the hands of actual snowboarders. You should go check out his show. It's a blast. Pause this show right now to subscribe to Unstrapped on YouTube. We met at his house in Reno during my trip to Tahoe earlier this year. Please enjoy this episode from his garage, the one and only Andrew, well, one of two, Andrew Brewer.
Yobi was... Obviously, there was Transworld. Obviously, there was Snowboarder.
Yeah.
Yobi was kind of like the new one. But the thing that made Yobi what it was that they had a comment section where people fucking lit up each other's shit.
Okay.
And then got into arguments. And then got into fighting wars. And then, like, it got to, like, oh, there's that motherfucker on the mountain. Like, no, I don't think anything ever turned into, like, a physical confrontation. But, like, really comical commentary would go off in, like, banter. When you logged on, you checked Transworld, you checked Snowboarder, and then you went to Yobi and saw what else. Because Yobi also would post the Yagoons before they became the Yagoons. You know what I mean? Like, Brandon Reese edits that before Brandon Reese became Brandon Reese.
I love this.
And, like, you know, things like that before they became fucking...
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it was a big deal if you got posted by Transworld or Snowboarder. It was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And that was even before Instagram.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
when you got... Like, Yobi was somewhere that would actually post your content.
Yeah.
You know? I think that there became, like, a financial issue to where it wasn't sustaining, like, enough to where she could keep it going.
Right.
And it just became, like, so much work for not enough money. And I don't know. I don't know. So I'm, like, don't, like, paraphrase that and, like, make it seem like, oh, that's exactly what happens. I do not know.
No.
But, it just kind of disappeared, which was a bummer because I thought it was a good, like, third source, you know? And now there's, like, Tournament Mag and other, like, third source platforms.
Sure.
And there's also no longer Transworld or Snowboarder.
Isn't that nuts? Right.
It is
Yeah.
wild. But they were also, like, middle ground snowboarders. Like, it'd be Brandon Hammond, Sean Black, like, people that weren't quite fucking big pros yet. They were, like... They may have had a checkout in Snowboarder or a on deck in Transworld.
They're coming up.
You know what I mean? Like,
They're
kind of
up.
levels.
Yeah.
But they weren't like...
What was Stan's MO?
Stan just did exactly what he does on his show. He just did the Stan, like, green screen, make a comical
I don't even
video.
really know what it is. Is he cynical or is he...
I mean, it's hard to say what it is now because it's... I wouldn't say sanctioned, but because now he's like the editor of fucking Slush Mag, or whatever, right? But,
yeah. So is that legit? Is that what, like, because I think of Slush Mag as like fully legit.
I think of Slush Mag as fully legit too. For sure. I mean, I think it's the most legit publication there is.
Yeah, I like King Snow and Snowboard Canada, obviously, because of where I'm from.
For sure.
King Snow seems to me to be holding it down.
Yeah.
And Slush seems like they're kind of on the same page. They're making these free mags to go out at shops, and they're including killer content from great photographers.
I think it's the sickest physical format there is right now. I think Torment Mag is really cool, but it's also very like exclusive, and it seems to me like they do a little bit more like, hey, we're doing stuff with our friends more than like the masses.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I feel like Slush Mag does the same thing. Like Slush Mag still is going to make sure that they're running photos of people that are sponsoring the magazine, not not the bulk of snowboarding.
There's a nepotistic nature of human people. That's the way it is. But also
there's also just the monetary fact of it. So we can't run a bunch of photos of random people because your magazine or your company doesn't pay us to. Like, which is fair, and I get that.
Kevin Kinnear started Transworld Snowboarder. Transworld Snowboarding. He was the very first editor, and he came from a surfing background.
Yeah.
And he just loved the idea of starting out somewhere fresh because surfing had gone through this cycle where it was like the olden days. It was just whoever was really good at the break got the shot. The good shots went in the mag.
Yeah.
I don't know how they paid for it. I was so devastated when Doug Palladini, who used to be the editor for Snowboarder and then was like the CEO for Vans.
Yeah.
He was the president for Vans. He told me like we didn't give a shit about the. Sorry, I'm paraphrasing him.
Like they were, if you had a cool picture, we posted a cool picture.
No. What he was saying was that the subscriptions was like no money. That's zero money. Whereas in my life, the fact that I'm paying $36 a year for this mag, I'm thinking I'm the customer.
Totally.
But the customer is Ford and Burton and Sims and anyone who buys ads there. Those are their customers. Yeah. That's who's paying them to make the mag.
Totally.
When they were beholden to us, when Kevin Kinnear was there, they were just running the best photos that they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. So you would see naked snowboards in there. You would see like these little, like Avalanche was like a fairly major brand in print when I was coming up.
That didn't have a budget to spend on a massive
and
like
it was
marketing
tiny.
campaign.
It was just Damien
Transworld
and Dana getting like and Tom Burt and Jim Zellers getting these shots that went in the magazines.
Yeah.
Not because but Kevin came from surfing where it had already gone to the point where you were buying a package. You bought a full page spread, back cover, inside ad, and then you got X amount of cover shots.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, I remember hearing at one point, I mean, like, look, it was really interesting to me and very foreign when I first got, well, shit, I guess we should, we can just start the whole show or whatever. I don't know if we already have.
Yeah, but, we have. Yeah.
I had a very, very fast introduction relatively into the real snowboard world, right?
Okay.
Like, I moved out here. I read an article in, I forget if it was Snowboarder or Transworld. I think it was Transworld. But it said the best colleges to go to for snowboarding, whatever, right?
Yeah, cool.
And it said the best college was University of Nevada, Reno. So I was like, well, applying there first, And then it was like Colorado Mountain College.
Sure.
My parents were never going to let me go to Colorado Mountain College, but
come?
I never... Because it was too small. Like, they wanted me to go to a university. Like, I grew up, my parents were very not supportive of snowboarding.
They were like,
not even academics. I mean, my dad became an airline pilot later. My mom was an elementary school teacher. But my dad was in the Air Force. But to be honest, what it was is that he was a gymnast in college and he had a really, really severe injury.
Oh.
And he never wanted that to happen to one of us.
I got you.
And so he kind of always pushed us away, and they really pushed us towards mainstream sports. Like, I weighed like 100 pounds when I graduated high school. Like, I was teeny. There was no chance in hell that I was going to any college on a physical sports scholarship, right?
Got you.
But I was always really good at snowboarding, but they would never send us to snowboard camp. They never drove us to USASA competitions or any of that stuff. Like I had like the Wendell's catalog, and I remember just being like, one day maybe, you know, like I never, like that was never going to happen for me. So when I saw this ad or this article that said, go to college where this snowboard, I was like, well, that's the college that I want to go to. So I applied, eventually got in, and then of course, classic, never went to school and just snowboarded. But it was really quick from that point on because I had a welding teacher in high school, and the backstop of our junior varsity baseball stadium had been torn down. So there was all this steel that was laying around. And I was really good at welding. I would do a project that had 2 weeks on the schedule in 2 days, right?
Right.
So I had all this spare time during that class. So I asked him, I was like, hey, can I take all this steel and make these rails? And he was like, what are you talking about? You know? And I was like, no, look, this is what the snowboarders do.
I love
it.
And
a place where I lived in Colorado, Monument. It's still far from the mountains, probably like a 2.5 hour drive on no traffic. To like Breckenridge.
Yeah.
But we still got like some snow. So I had these rails put in my yard. I welded them and then brought them up to my house, put them in my yard, and me and my brother just learned to snowboard on these rails. So then when I moved out here and started doing the small little contests and all these little things, I had a really fast progression because I was really good at doing all these rails. You know, I got to go to Breckenridge maybe twice a month. I would, especially like my junior, senior year of high school.
That's so,
because I could like finally had a driver's license and drive up.
Yeah.
But I could maybe go on the weekends if I was lucky. So all I did was learn how to do rails in the backyard at my house when we had snow. So when I moved out here and started doing all this Rome had these contest series called the I Heart Box where they like brought this snowboard box to spots.
Yeah.
And I won a couple of those. It was there that I met like the DC rep and all these people. He gave me some boots and outerwear. That's how I got on like the DC like rep program at the time.
Yeah. And that happens within your first few months of being out here?
Within the first few months, because I was like, wait, there's and there wasn't like contests like that in Colorado.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Every once in a while there'd be like the Hometown Heroes contest.
Yeah.
But that was invite only. I wasn't like, no one knew who Andrew was in Monument, Colorado.
Right.
There was like the big like not US Open, but the Vail Sessions contest. X Games was in like Aspen still at that time. But again, nothing that I was going to be going to,
right?
Or have a chance at. And again, I lived really far from the mountains, and my parents were not about to like waste 2.5 hours of their day to drive me up to watch me enter like a box contest at Arapahoe Basin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And so when I finally came here, had my own car, I was like, wait, I can drive like an hour or 2 hours to Sacramento where they're having this Rome like box contest and compete in it.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I went and I followed that tour like every week to every spot.
Nice.
And just started meeting like the reps because they were all there. It was like early preseason stuff. I was obviously doing really well because doing a hardway 270 onto a box that's 3 inches off the ground is really easy.
Especially,
but I was already doing that.
How many hours a day are you putting in to your home rail garden? Like, are you coming
as
home
soon
from
as I
school
got home until it got dark? My brother and I. I mean, and we would watch video gangs. We would watch all those videos, and I remember like I had this poster above my bed. It's the photo of JP Walker doing a switchback 270 gap on the Vermont kink rail.
Nice.
And I remember being, I gotta learn switchback 270s now. And like we would go home and we would learn all of these tricks. Like we would start with frontside 50-50, backside 50-50, backside board side, frontside board side, and just work our way through all the tricks every night. Yeah. Because we knew that you had to do all of it. You couldn't just do like, oh, I'm really good at board slides, you know?
You know what's a funny thing, a funny aside, is that my friend Scott is a videographer in skateboarding. We always talk like we know what we're talking about board sports or whatever. But the greats, the real greats, so a good pro snowboarder has one or two like kind of like tricks that they do that's the style thing that they could do. Most of them it's one.
I mean, like mine was like frontside 5-0s.
There
like,
you
that
go.
Was my like trick. But.
Yeah. Some have two and they're the next level up.
Mm-hmm.
But those top tier guys, they probably only have 3 or 4 That's it.
Peter Line's back rodeo.
Yeah.
Right? Like, stuff like that.
And like when you think about Peter Line, so he's an anomaly.
Totally.
Because he probably had 8. Like he
right.
he moved from one to the other. He invented stuff. And he invented stuff that like still to this day his backside rodeo is the standard.
For sure.
It's the standard. People try and do them like Peter. But it's kind of surprising that, because you would think if you just asked the layman, how many tricks do you think it takes to be like an Uber bro?
Yeah.
You'd think it takes hundreds or something. Yeah. But really, if you've got 4, then you can kind of interweave them into other tricks. And and it's...
Well, yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, naturally, you're the snowboarder guy, right? So everyone wants to ask you, like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And the number one thing I say is just go snowboarding a lot. Like, that's it. Tricks come super easy when you know every single thing that your snowboard's going to do at every moment. Totally. Like, being the best trick snowboarder is not being the best snowboarder. Right,
right. Okay, but that's the thing, right? Like for us in Canada, the McMorris brothers are a very similar story. Like that's a similar story. Is that if your foundation is like after school every day, riding a few rail features that you set up in different ways, you literally are learning like the skills that are the hardest to learn. Like I remember Sean Johnson, who was a very famous Canadian snowboarder, and was he started Stepchild.
Oh,
Stepchild was him. Like when he started Stepchild, he left World Industries and he was like, "Fuck it, I'm going to do my own thing." Yeah. And so he knew he had to do rails, and I saw him at our local mountain. He had a helmet on, and he's practicing.
Dude, I had a helmet too. Parents made me wear it. If I was going to go snowboarding, I had to wear the helmet.
And then he's getting his shots. Yep. And he takes the helmet off, he throws it down, gets the shot, and it gets in a magazine. Yeah. But it was like, so the thing is, like, free riding's easy. Yeah. You put a powder line in front of most people. Yeah. You know, most people spend a lot of their time like riding fast, hitting jumps, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But like getting good on rails requires what you guys did.
For me, it was repetition. Like repetition. At least,
that's what it needs. And getting style. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like to get. You might be born with it, or it might be. Yeah.
I certainly think that you're born with it, because I've seen kids that'll start snowboarding, and after a year, you're like. This dude's got flavor. Greasy. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's got something, you know? And for a lot of people, style is, not for a lot of people, for most people, style is more important than any trick, period. Like, I would watch Mark Frank Montoya do a 360 than somebody else do a quad cork or over skill. Like, not that Mark Frank Montoya didn't have the skill, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
I know exactly what you're saying. I remember looking at his video parts sometimes going, he's not going to grab. Really? Yeah. He's not going to grab. And then his jacket's flapping and his hands are just where they are.
Or his straight airs. Like just his straight airs. Were like the sickest thing ever. Like,
yeah. Riding every once in a while with Devin, riding with him at Seymour.
Same person, yeah.
It's like, are you joking me? Like, how do you make a turn look good?
Yeah.
How do you make a turn look that good when it's not like, and it's his own. It's not like he doesn't look like he's trying to be one of those Japanese carver guys.
You can tell, like, when you, like, the way that I've always like thought about it was like, if you were looking at somebody as in just their silhouettes, like there was a white screen in front of them and all you were seeing is shadows.
Yeah.
And you can tell who all the different people are. Yeah, that's how you know you're like a true snowboarder, when you can just pick up on who all the people are.
Yeah, that's true.
When you can pick out the people that are just like Mark Frank Montoya, Aaron Bittner, like whoever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Scotty Stevens. He's got great style. It's unbelievable.
Dude, he's the greatest human.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the best. Yeah.
So this rail thing, you start instantly. You're following the Rome box tour.
I mean, I was like everybody. I like JP Walker. So rails, and then obviously like, when I did grow up in Colorado, like doing jumps wasn't like, we had big jumps in Colorado a long time ago. Like the big line at Breckenridge was 60, 70, 80 feet. Sometimes they were 70, 80, 90. And they weren't like the nice, like step up, like jumps. They were like the 10-foot tall, like cheese wedge, flat deck, better hope you make it jumps. So I was a good jumper, but moving out here, people weren't as much jumpers. They were more into jibbing and rails and things like that.
Yeah.
And, so I just kind of went along in that path. And it was also kind of at a time in snowboarding when people were starting to get more hyper-focused on one thing.
Yes.
Like, there were still certain people. I mean, like, Austin Smith was still doing, like, sick backcountry shit and sick rails.
Sure.
Aki Helgeson, doing like sick rail parts and
Hell yeah.
super sick backcountry parts.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were getting a lot more like hyper focused on certain things. I obviously was doing rails. I'd been doing like even handrails when I was like very young, even the small rails that we had in my hometown, you know, like when I was 14, I have like a photo of me on like a super old M3, like trying to lip slide this handrail. And I'm like fully like, it was when there was just like a click camera, like on a little like disposable camera. And I didn't know what the photos are, but it's like me edge catching and like fully about to eat shit. And it's like, it's great. But yeah, I mean, that's like, I knew that I needed to do handrails because that's what I thought was cool. And jumping was cool, but I didn't ever have the chance to really like, oh, I'm going to go build like a 100-foot powder jump today. You know?
That just wasn't, it wasn't something that...
But like literally I remember going at my high school, there was like this kink rail there. And I remember like standing next to it with the measuring tape, seeing how tall that rail was. And then when I welded the rails, I like put them in the ground at the height that handrail was.
That's
so
amazing.
I like learned how to hit like handrail height rails.
That's smart.
In my yard.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean... Yeah.
It gives you an advantage, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess, that's just how I learned. Like my brother.
So you're specialized on rails. This first season, you come out. What ends up happening between, the start of the season, the end of the season? Do you end it with like a board sponsor or with a shop sponsor? Or?
So a few things happened. I started riding for this dude, Jarrett, and he was one of the DC reps out here. Okay. And so he started giving me DC boots because I was riding I don't know if you remember the DC Phantom 4s, but they had the gel toe caps and they had the pumps in the air bladders and everything.
All the bells and whistles.
Yeah. And so I was riding those, and at that point they were like 8 seasons old. Like they were old. Like I bought them old, like they were already like 3 seasons old when I bought them because they were on sale, right? And he was like, dude, those things are haggard. Like, let me get you some new boots. So he sent me like the Mountain Lab, like orange and blue boots. And then I got like some outerwear with like the Mountain Lab print all over it. And started writing for them. And then also at that same year, we had a contest. There was a bar here in Reno, which I wasn't even old enough to go into yet. But it was called Fritz's, and it had a North Star park rail that they had cemented in at the parking lot. And they would have like snowboard premieres there. The whole inside was like themed snowboarding. It had like snowboard banners. It was the shit. It was like, heaven for me when I turned 21, right?
Yeah.
And but anyways, they had a contest there that I ended up like, I don't know if I won it or doing really well, but Smokin' Jay was there. And Smokin' was like, hey dude, what's up? Like, and Nick Visconti actually at the time like introduced me to him because I had met Nick like through like preseason riding at like different spots around Tahoe. And then he introduced me to Smokin' Jay, and Smokin' was like, hey, come by the shop, get you some boards.
Rad.
Which I was like, what? Like I was like freaking out, you know what I mean? So yeah, within a few months of being out here, I was like on DC rep riding, and I was on Raiden bindings. The Nitro rep gave me some Raiden bindings.
Rad.
And then smoking snowboards.
That's crazy.
So it was I mean, and like I said, it was very crazy. Like I always kind of had like a weird chip on my shoulder. I was made fun of, not made fun of, like I don't want to sound like I was made fun of all the time, but like I said, I was really small. I was a small kid. And so I did get picked on a lot, especially playing normal sports. And so I always kind of had this thing like, I'm good at snowboarding. I'm going to do something with snowboarding. And I always had this like goal of like becoming like a sponsored snowboarder was like my thing,
Yeah.
Not even to go pro, not even to go anything, but just to be like an like sponsored snowboard.
Dude.
And so when all that happened that first year, it became a little more addicting.
Yeah.
And I got even more into it.
So when you move out here, what's your resort? Boreal?
I was just going to Boreal. I mean, again, where I grew up in Colorado, like the closest good skate park that I had was like 45 minutes away. Right. So driving to Boreal from Reno was like 35 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I was like, every day, like
You're
when
right
I
there.
was actually going to classes, like I could go up to the mountain.
Yeah.
Right after.
Yeah.
So,
you guys have so much.
And night riding. Yeah.
To
we have
choose
night
from
riding,
out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, North Star and Boreal for sure.
Killer.
Yeah. It was awesome.
So who's the first main, like what happens? How long are you on smoking for?
So I was on Smokin' for like only like 2 or 3 seasons. And he actually offered to like give me a model board and all this stuff, which I was blown away about. I was like floored by, but at that time, DC was just about to start making boards.
Okay.
And they basically gave me like an ultimatum, like, hey, do you want to ride for Smokin', or do you want to be like the first people on like DC boards? Like, and again, I was still pretty much rep riding at that time.
Yeah.
But somebody once told me, I don't remember who it was, but they were like, look, you can be a big fish in a small pond, or you can be a small fish in a big pond and see where it takes you, you know? And Smokin' wasn't like paying me or anything yet. So I was just like, you know what? Let's just see where this goes. Like DC, I mean, I've looked at DC posters on my wall my whole life. You know what I mean? Let's see where this goes. And so I started doing DC boards. I ended up going to like the Mountain Lab on a random, like...
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a sales meeting at the Mountain Lab, and something fell through with the other rep or something, and there was this open space, and they're like, hey, Andrew, you should come. And at this point, I was like starting to win. I had already won like the Boreal JPI contest, like the Invitational that year. I had been winning a bunch of like local contests regionally, so I was making like contest winnings and stuff at this point.
Wow, cool.
But they're like, hey, you should come out to the Mountain Lab. And I was like,
yes,
duh. Yeah, of course. So went there, and I was really into like the skinny fit, like sort of gypsy, like snowboarder stage, right?
Yeah.
And I was at the Mountain Lab, and Nick Olson, who then became the team manager later on, he was like the dude who ran the Mountain Lab at the time. He was like, dude, what are those fucking like girl pants or something? And I was like, yeah, actually they are. And he's like, all right, well, they actually look kind of dope, because I was like riding so well. He was like, oh shit, this kid's like actually kind of sick.
Yeah.
And one thing kind of went on with that. Nick Olson and I started talking more. Next thing you know, I was like getting boards from him, no longer the rep. And then like everything was going great on DC. Like everything was smooth sailing, everything was cool. And then it's got such a like a crazy quick blur with everything. But essentially what happened was that year I was out filming, I was riding for Commune, like the streetwear brand. And again, DC, I wasn't like officially on the team or anything. I had like no contractual agreements with anything.
Yeah.
So I was just like riding their stuff, outerwear, boards, boots, and Commune streetwear. Well, all of a sudden one day, I was out filming for the Commune video at that time with like Ben Rice, Eric Messier. We all like lived together at that time. And I end up linking up that evening with like Jake Devine and Travis Kennedy and this dude Drew Satin, who was filming them for like the Tech 9 video.
Sick.
And we all kind of linked up, like got along. I was hitting the same spots they were, One thing led to another. Next thing you know, I'm getting a call from Drew saying, hey, Cole Taylor wants you to film for the new Tech 9 movie.
God damn.
And I'm like, I'll never forget it. I was back home in Colorado for like Christmas break. And I was at the bowling alley, and I got that call, and I was like, oh my God. And I like look at my brother. I'm like, dude, guess what? Holy shit. Like, and I was like, obviously losing it. And then so the rest of the year I ended up filming for them with FODT and with Cole for that year's video, which was the arena. And I was on fully like DC head to toe at that point. And then after that video came out, I was like, hey, DC, I'm in the big movies now. I think I should get a contract or something. I don't want to keep having to hit up the rep or Nick Olson for like one board a year.
Right.
They were like, you're not really ready yet or something. And I was like, what? Like, how am I like, okay.
They gave you one of those blow off things like our budget this year is already spent.
And, I mean, it probably was. They had just bought that whole giant team.
It was a giant team.
Yeah, and like I was going on trips with DC. Like I went to Minnesota for like this. It was called the DC like Drive Up Tour, I think it was called. And it was like I went there with like Ika and Laurie and like the whole team. It was like a full like tour. We went to like a bunch of different spots in Minneapolis. Justin Fronius, who later on went on to be bigger with them, but he was there. Yeah, it was crazy. And
how fun was that? You have good memories from that?
I mean, it was fucked up. It was the time when Minneapolis got like 10 feet of snow. Like the roof of the football stadium collapsed there. Like we were literally like stuck in hotel rooms the whole time. Like, and we got kicked out of a couple hotel rooms too, which was pretty funny also, but it was cool.
Just mayhem.
The Euros
mayhem.
Doing Euro things in their rooms,
in their underwear, throwing a lamp out the window or something.
Fully. Yeah. And like, God, I'll never forget it. Me and Bittner were staying in the same room together, and we're just like hanging, and you can hear like their music like down the hall, and we're like, dude, this is. And next thing you know, like to everyone's doors, like you're out of here. Like, and this was at like 2 a.m. in the blizzard. And we're like, oh my God, like what are we doing? And we found a hotel room. Nick Olson, I think he took care of it. But yeah, that was pretty wild, but definitely like a wild introduction with like those guys. But yeah, they just like nothing. It wasn't even that they weren't doing anything. I just don't think that their schedule was lining up with mine. And I had just been offered to ride for Nomis because Nomis was like doing their whole like new revamp of like their team. And Cole was like, look, dude, if you're in the video, you need to be riding like DC doesn't make bindings, so he gave me some Tech 9 bindings. Yeah. He's like, DC's not paying you. Why don't you ride like Nomis outerwear this year? I was like, okay. And then I was like still pretty like gung-ho about riding for DC boards.
Yeah, those early boards rode well, right?
Yeah, they were fine. Like they were good. I mean, I had nothing to say bad about them. Like they were fine.
At the time you could.
But it was like, I was at this moment that I thought for myself was a turning point. Like, am I going to stick with DC and just keep holding on to the hopes that maybe they bring me on for real? Like, and at that time it was like, dude, Chaz Goldemond was still like an AM. Right. Like Jonas Carlson was still like an AM. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like join them? Like those guys are going to be the next ones brought up, not me. Right. Like, am I going to sit here and like hang on to riding for them? Like it with maybe no future. And like I said, like Fronius is a few years younger than me. So he had a little more time to go. And not that I was old. I was like 22. But yeah, Cole was basically like, essentially what he said. So Tech 9 got selected to go to the Transworld like team shootout.
Cool.
And they were like, hey, we need a 4th dude. What's up with DC? Are they putting you on or not? We're going to Montreal tomorrow. Do you want to go on this trip and go film for the team shootout?
So it would be board and bindings, Tech 9
everything.
Stuff.
Yeah. And Nomis outerwear.
And Nomis. Right.
And so I was like, fuck it. Yep. Here we go. I'm riding for Tech 9 now. And yeah, went to Montreal and ended up it being awesome. We won the Transworld team shootout that year. Oh, and wow. I was the one that ended up getting the cover of Transworld from that. Yeah. Congrats, and I was just like, and it was crazy because like Capito was also in it and like Scott Stevens was there, Kel Zima, all those dudes. And I'm thinking like one of them for sure. And when they like revealed the cover, I was like, oh my God, like I was losing it.
Yeah. That was like, sick.
Yeah, that was.
Where was the reveal?
At the offices. Yeah. In SoCal. They had like the big like Transworld team shootout like awards. And we didn't know that we had won, but like they were hinting because we weren't really sure we were going to go down there. And you guys need to come down here. Like,
yeah. Dope.
Okay. But I certainly didn't think it was going to be me. I thought it would be Dylan or Jonah Owen or Derek Dennison, one of those guys, not me. So when it happened, I was pretty hyped. But and that's when I was like, well, I guess I made the right choice of going to Tech 9.
There's only one thing with that I'm curious about. You already said you were wearing girls' tight pants.
I was wearing Nomis, like girls' pants.
Yeah, Nomis is still tight stuff too. Nomis was sick at that point.
It was really sick. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just after that, like the Simone plaid hoodie time, but it was like, it was. They had better stuff, but they still sent me like some really bright shit, which I was not down for at all. But I mean,
when you're on the team, you have to wear the bright.
You got to you got. I mean, and Cole. I mean, and look, anybody that doesn't know this, which I'm sure most people already know that listen to this, but obviously you're not going to get a really good photo wearing black in front of a bunch of black trees.
Grays,
so you got to wear
popping
colors.
Yeah, man,
most of the time. So but yeah, I was running the Nomis girls pants because they had the slimmest fit, and it was still like super like rock and roll. Like I still had those sort of like commune like Scotty Whitlake sort of like vibes going, you know what I mean?
Sick.
Like I love that shit. So
yeah, dope.
Like the love hate like videos, things like that were like
that was insane.
What I was watching. So I was
saw
trying
the
to
premiere
look
of that.
like those guys, you know?
I saw in Vancouver they did a premiere of Love Hate, and there was a Wildcats premiere or something. So like it got out of hand.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was chaos.
Wildcats videos were always one
of my
favorites.
I saw Mikey out. I don't think he smoked. Neither did Devin. But I saw Devin and Mikey right after Love Hate played. Yeah. And Devin was like, wow.
Yeah.
And Mikey was like, really? He's like,
well, they were like,
the people didn't know what to do. Like a video premiere like that, people saw it and they were like, what is this? Mm-hmm. Because it was weird. It was like a weird video.
Well, there was such a formula for so long.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have like full parts of smoking sections. And you're like, and all like the interlacing of like random footage and doing stuff that's not like, in a lot of videos there were still like, oh, lifestyle stuff, but it wasn't like, it was more like lifestyle on the mountain, lifestyle, whatever. It wasn't necessarily, I mean, there was definitely like party videos and things like that, but to me, those videos just kind of did it with a little more like taste.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yeah, man.
And like the film burns and like all the different things that they like, the 16 millimeter footage and like all the little, like, remember the little Canon digital elves?
Totally.
Like all that footage and like all that stuff. Man. It just gave it a little, gave it more like.
Yeah, it had personality. That's
for sure. Yeah.
It stood out as something rad.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's a cool era.
It also kind of goes back to that whole sort of thing, which was like, it appealed to a different kind of snowboarder. It appeared to more people that were, the stuff that they were doing was a lot more feasible. Like jumping downstairs like they do on their skateboard was a lot more feasible than riding and fucking crazy AK line.
Well, that and what was happening at that time were jumps were getting bigger, spins were getting more. Like it was like it was a. I mean,
it was like 100-foot Hemsedal jump sessions.
It was insane, right?
It was crazy, and it's like, okay, well, here's Justin Hebel doing a backlip on a 20 stair.
Yeah,
like I've seen dudes at my skate park backlip rails, or you know,
I don't
know, just there was other people doing rails, but at that time, like, cooler street snowboarding came into the mix.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, there was still people like, or here's an even better example. Like they were doing street snowboarding in street clothes, not in bright outerwear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was another big thing.
Absolutely. Like, right.
Because even those older, I mean, I'm thinking of like that photo of JP Walker, Switchback 270, and he's in like all special blend outerwear. You know, like these dudes are in like jeans and hand sewn Holden pants. Yeah, the
snowboard community has always been a bunch of fragmented, smaller communities.
For sure.
Always, like from the beginning. Like, and skateboarding too. Mm-hmm. You know, they divide on lines of, you know, what size are your wheel? Oh, you've got wheels over 50 centimeters.
Baggy pants or skinny pants.
Exactly. Long hair, shaved head, or whatever it is.
Well, those videos were also cool because they had every kind of person, you know?
Yes.
They had like your John Cooley or your Corey Smith.
Yeah.
But then they also had Mark Frank Montoya and Justin Hebel.
Yeah.
And then they had like the people that were kind of in the middle, like a Daryl Mathis or a Jordan Mendenhall or a Louis Fountain. You know, they had these middle, they kind of had a spectrum of people, you know, and it wasn't so, this person's crazy part, this person's crazy part, this person's crazy part, you know, it was
there's a formula that works, right? Like those videos do work.
Yeah,
I mean, now, okay, so the job that you've chosen, which is, I want to talk about, like a board dungeon. I want to talk about Unstrapped. Like I want to talk about your projects. They're so rad, but like, you know, up in Canada, we've got Jody Wachniak. He is a videophile.
Dude,
like, and there are a lot of them out there. I left that. Like for me, I cannot consume that much media anymore. I'm not able to.
When I was younger, I was an encyclopedia. Like my brother and I, we had a long ass drive to go up to Breckenridge on the weekends, right? So we would burn the CDs with all the songs from the movies, right?
Of course.
And that was, you know, before the internet. So you'd wait for the credits to roll, or back in those days, like a lot of the credits would like pop up with the song name during the video as it was going. And you'd write them down, and then you'd go to Napster and you'd download them, and then you'd put them all into a CD.
Rad.
And we would sit there and we'd mix them on purpose, and we would drive up to the mountain and just name every single person's part of every song and everything, right?
That's incredible.
But nowadays there is just so much. Like, how do you even like? It's almost impossible for at least for me to keep track. And I watch a lot of snowboarding. Like, back then, when you anticipated a movie for months, and then the shop finally got it, and you and your buddy like split. You both win in $7 so you could buy a $14 movie. Yeah. And then you went home and you watched it like 6 times and you studied every single person's part. Yeah. And not only could you tell them like the song from the person's part, but you could be like, oh yeah, this part of the song, Lori Ascari is doing a switchback or a backside 1080.
Yeah. You know? When you hear the song on the radio, you're like, oh, where are the sounds of the rails?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know them in your head.
Yep.
The sound or like even the cheer or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Totally feel you on that. I went away from it. And you know what? Today was a historic day in my feed.
Yeah.
I got some snowboarding that was like super wacky.
Yeah.
Like I got some snowboarding today.
Sick.
Somebody who's probably year 1 or year 2.
Yeah.
Filming them and their friends. Yeah. And Instagram was like, you're going to want to maybe see this.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's happened?
Yeah.
Like, why am I seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
The hell is that? Are you? I'm like, is it because my snowboarding that I put on my feed is at this level? Now I'm not allowed to see the good stuff anymore.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So it's like, it is so weird that the absolute sheer volume of snowboarding. There's this new format. You know, Slush is doing it with the 5 clips of the week, and I think that it's not White Lines. It's the other one that you just were
Torment.
Torment. They're doing like 5 clips. Wozniak's
well, not only that, but they're all producing their own videos. They're all doing. I mean,
yeah. So
everyone's also kind of grabbing for like. They're also grabbing for hosting it because they want more subscribers, they want more viewers. So they're like, oh, give us your movie tours. Back in the day, like you'd be super psyched if Snowboarder posted your video, but now you're like, dude, I'm not going to let you post it. Like, I'm going to post it on my feed so I get the views. You know what I mean? And it's
absolutely right. The Man Boys movie was on the Bombhole feed.
Yep.
It premiered on the Bombhole feed.
Yeah, and I Space Cadet is the newest one. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but
really, yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, I like have to strategically map out what I'm watching so that I can like record it and do a bunch of other stuff. But we'll get to that in a bit. But
I'm excited. Yeah. So your career takes off on Tech 9. You get the cover of Transworld. That's a pedigree, man.
It was incredible. It was I had had the cover of Snowboard Colorado.
Cool.
Or no, not yet. I hadn't had that yet. But I'd had the cover of Pleasure Mag. So my first cover was Pleasure Mag in Europe.
Sick.
Which was super random and also like insane. Sean Sullivan.
He's the big
SKS Sean Sullivan, not older Sean Sullivan.
Oh, younger Sean Sullivan.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I believe that he shot it. I'm almost 90%. It's so hard because I feel like every Tech 9 shoot we did, it was with Eastone.
Of course it would be, right, but
But actually that photo shoot, that was actually I was wearing a bright red DC hoodie, giant logo, DC board, everything. And that's why I was like, if DC doesn't want to like keep do anything.
What a ball drop there.
Yeah. And so I was just like,
it happens. See, the thing is sometimes being an AM or a rep rider on a team can suck you into that whole, like,
totally.
If you look at Bo Bishop, he was an AM on Ride when he was getting more coverage than most pros on most companies.
Totally. Yeah.
Like if your team manager has that relationship with you and just doesn't see it in their head that you're stepping up to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, I didn't know what more I could be doing. Like, sure, it wasn't one of the majors. It wasn't Snowboard. It wasn't Transworld yet. But it was like still a really big magazine. Yeah. And it was also, I was filming full pro video parts. I was winning full pro contests. I was getting covers of big magazines. And so I was just like, all right, guys, like, okay. Like, and like I said, there was a lot of heavy people on that team. So it's not like I'm not sitting here being like, the team was pathetic and I was better than everybody. Because that's not the case at all.
No.
Like, all those dudes were amazing and still all dudes that I look up to. And I certainly didn't even put myself like on the pro team of that team at that time. You know what I mean? I was like, I just want to be answering emails from the team manager, not answering, like calling my rep to get new boots.
I totally hear you. So when you go to Tech 9, Are they taking care of you? Are you now like quitting your job or quitting school and going like, hey, I'm making a salary? And
when I went to Nomis, the reason I went to Nomis in the first place was because they were giving me a paycheck, right? So they were like, hey, we're going to start paying you. And at that time, like I said, I was living with Eric Messier. I was living with Ben Rice. I was living with a bunch of people, and our rent was super cheap. And so Nomis was paying like $500 a month, but it was enough for me to be surviving living with all these other people.
Sure.
So, yeah, I had quit snowboarding. I actually, when I got invited to go on that DC trip is when I essentially quit, because that DC trip was during finals week of college.
Quit school.
And I was like, do I go to finals week or do I go on a trip with DC? What has been your dream your whole life? So, yeah, I chose the snowboard route.
What does that sound like to your parents? Is it like you don't
They
ask
didn't know.
them at
I
all?
didn't talk to them. I mean, I knew that every single year, every other semester, or whatever case, when I would go back home, that I was going to hear the lecture, you know, and I did. And every single year I was like, yeah, I'll change. I'll do better. I'll do different. Right. But I knew what I wanted. Like, I knew I could always, college is something for me that I could have always gone back to and done. Yeah. Right. Being a professional snowboarder, following every dream I've had since I was 12, doing all that was not something that you can just go back to when you're 40,
no,
you know, or
true.
whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so I said, you know, I had met people in the past that were like, oh, you know, I could have done this. I could have done that. And I was like, I will never be that person. Like, I refuse to be that person.
Right.
So I'm going to take advantage of the situation that I have right now. And this is my dream. And the last thing I'm going to do is talk to my grandkids and be like, well, you know, I was really good at snowboarding too. I could have been a pro at one time, you know? I was like, I'm going to take this as serious as I can and take it as far as it'll go.
And see where it goes.
But yeah, so Tech 9 was taking care of me. I was fully out of school. I was filming fully with Cole and Drew at the time. And yeah, I went to the team shootout, ended up getting the cover. Stone and Cole ended up calling me and saying, hey, we want to give you a board and a binding. And everyone on the team kind of already had that. So it wasn't like,
yeah.
And we didn't have the giant, like, oh my God, here's your board pro thing. You know, like we didn't have that. Like, that wasn't really a thing yet. Maybe it was in the past or at a different time, but it wasn't for us. Like Stone was like, yeah, what do you think of this graphic? Call an artist, da-da-da-da-da. Like I've got a guy. And so I ended up doing like my first board and it was cool. The one problem that I kind of always struggled with Tech 9 was Tech 9 had a very real image, right? Their image was hip hop, Rasta colors, baggy ass clothes.
Gangster.
And one of the reasons why they were super supportive of me is at that time we were really trying to be more evolved into like an everything brand.
That makes sense.
And so we were kind of trying to have, you know, Dylan Thompson was into like the Led Zeppelin and the Pink Floyds. Sick. I was into like the fucking Cradle of Filth and the metal and the Gorgoroths and all, you know, the gnarly bands.
Yeah.
And the Bradshaw and the Lucases had their stuff going on. And MFM had his stuff going on and like all these dudes. So we were kind of trying to match all these different niches of music and make music the general idea of the brand.
That's right.
Which was great and it was awesome. But for me, it was pretty shitty because most of Tech 9's followers were people that were into hip hop and baggy clothes and shit. And so when I like, oh, are you going to buy Andrew skinny pants and his all black top sheet, like black and red, like murdered out bindings? Or are you going to buy like Bradshaw and Lucas's like Just Live collab?
Yeah.
So it was like, it was hard for me because my board sales, my stuff didn't do nearly as well as them. Which is understandable.
You weren't aligned with a company that was your...
And I was super hyped to be a part of it anyways because I did find myself as a niche. And it was always so funny because I would do interviews with people and they would say, what's it like being the first like slim fit person on Tech 9? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, have you guys never watched Live in Proof or any of the old videos like with Daryl Mathis? Like, dude, guys, think about who's had pro model bindings with Tech 9. Daryl, Scotty Whitlake, Justin Hebel, all these people that are like rock and rollers. And, you know, I would always laugh and have to be like, come on, dude. Like,
yeah, dude.
Like Miami Thunder just filmed a full video part last year and his pants are way tighter than mine. But, yeah, it was funny. But
how many years are you with Tech 9?
7 up until pretty much the end when everything kind of went. I mean, I don't want to call it the end because that brand is still around. It's just not what it was, obviously. But yeah, I just remember getting the call from Cole, just being like, hey, it was literally like right around Christmas. Hey, we're not renewing the contract this year. And we knew that something was going on.
Yeah.
There was rumblings and there had been a lot of like poor decisions made. Like we had gone through a bunch of different owners and within like a few years.
Yeah.
And same with Nomis.
Oh wow, that Nomis story.
Yeah, and everything
I'm gonna
was
have
just
Simone
like
on the podcast. For
yeah,
sure. I've talked to him on the phone before, and his story is like talk about, one day he's one of the he's got this company
literally one of the biggest,
that blows up insane,
yeah. Yep.
And then the next year he's with his, a week or two or a month later he's like with his wife going, I gotta make a paycheck in the next 2 weeks.
No.
In order for us to continue.
I mean, when I first got on Tech 9 with Nomis, we were under an umbrella company called Brand Base. And we had like the Nomis, I think Sound was a part of it too, Sound Outerwear.
That was MFM, right?
Yeah. But we had this like parent company, which was cool. We had a high evaluation as far as the company goes.
Yeah.
Nomis was doing well. We had like all the collabs with all the different brands. Things were going really well. There was still a lot of money in making movies, things like that.
Right.
And when all that sort of dwindled up and it really just came down to like selling product and not just necessarily an image, it became hard. And when things stopped getting delivered on time and other things happen, budget cuts happen. Well, more people are leaving, more mistakes are happening. One thing leads to another. And it's just like, it was, okay, let's find a new investor. Okay, this dude wants to take the company this way. Okay, we have a new investor. This person wants to do this. And you're, as a rider, you're kind of like kept away from a lot of that, but you still see it and you still feel the repercussions of it. Like,
hell yeah.
When you're going out and filming and Cole is being told that we're doing a whole video this year and you're filming a full part, and then it's like, hey, we have nothing to do with your footage this year and like all this stuff. Like, I filmed like, it's crazy. I really only have like 3 or 4 full video parts that actually came out like hard copy style, but I have all this extra footage and all these other video parts from footage that was filmed off of promises from companies telling Cole, like, yeah, we're making a video this year. Yeah, we're doing this. And then next thing you know, you're like filming full parts for nothing.
Oh, wow.
And you just have all this footage that you're like, okay, well, we're going to do this with it or episodes of this. And
yeah,
as much as you'd love to do all that, it's hard. And when you don't have an incentive to do it because no one's paying you to make those and no one wants it, gets even harder.
Yeah, I don't envy your timing in professional snowboarding. Like, that's one of the hardest times.
It was crazy, and then
actually
even harder.
They were all hard times. Like, like imagine being replaced not by like some financial crisis, but by actual like, someone who's better than you.
Oh,
like,
totally.
I've heard that story a lot. Like where people saw, the next generation is here, and we are stuck with our old tricks.
I was lucky never to have that per se, but it was definitely like as Tech 9 sort of collapsed, it was also the same time that like a lot of brands were collapsed, I believe, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm sure somebody will call me out if I'm wrong here, but I believe that was when Burton decided like Forum was going to be done too, like right around the same
something.
And or no, it might have been later, but it might not even have been Burton. It might have been a different brand or something, because it was way after 2008. This was like in 2014. But anyways, long story short, there was a mass amount of people that were now looking for sponsors, and it was when like Ride had already just started to rebuild everybody. Like Jake Welch had just got back on Ride. They were building a whole new thing. K2 was building a whole new thing.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden you've got all these Tech 9 dudes that are looking for sponsors. I mean, like Dylan Thompson, who just won X Games, couldn't get a board sponsor,
Isn't that
even
so
Lucas,
weird?
Even Bradshaw, couldn't get board sponsors. Like none of us could.
This is now actually in the time of this podcast. Like I interviewed Spencer O'Brien, and she was an Olympic hopeful, and she didn't have a board sponsor.
Totally. Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You don't have a board sponsor.
Yeah.
She's like, whatever, Toyota's paying for me to go.
Well, it also was a time when even if you could find a board sponsor, it's like you weren't getting that check you just left or got taken off of, And especially being a head-to-toe person, like every single person that was us on Tech 9, not only do you have to find your board sponsor, but then you're buying your outerwear, your boots, everything. And so those paychecks stopped coming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was tough. But like I said, I had seen the writing on the wall for a while, and Cole actually had given us like a heads up being like, hey, I don't know, this is going to be going much longer. And yeah, that was when I reached out to Death Label. Like I knew PJ.
Yeah.
Like PJ actually rode for Saber goggles with me, like super randomly. I had seen Death Label at Holy Boli in Japan like 3 years prior to that, and I was like, that's the sickest brand I've ever fucking seen in my life. They're just super cool.
That's
I was just
your
about
brand. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God, finally a brand. But they were like super Japanese. I was like, no chance, whatever. Well, have this Facebook friend and Saber goggle fellow teammate PJ.
Yeah.
Let me just hit him with a DM and be like, hey, what's up with these Death Label boards?
Yeah.
Within a week, I had 3 boards from Death Label from Japan.
That's amazing.
And I had already been talking to like some other people, and they were like, yeah, we can get you a board, maybe 2, which I was just stoked on, period. But then when it came down to it, I was like, these dudes are dope. The fact that they just like practically overnighted these boards to me is insane.
Yeah.
And just like, I know I'm not going to be getting a paycheck from anybody right now. So what do I want to ride?
Yeah.
And I was like, and which company wants to have me? Like, these dudes just sent me boards in 3 days from Japan.
Yeah.
Fuck it. I'm riding their boards.
Yeah.
And
dope.
they were what I wanted to anyway.
They're good people.
Dude, they're the best.
Yeah,
and
PJ gave us
the boards are the shit.
Gave us a breakdown on the dudes, and they're rad people.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I've been with them ever since.
So now you're actually helping distribute Death Label in North America?
Yeah, a little bit. So I mean, I obviously importing snowboards, having snowboards is extremely difficult, but and especially when you're paying shipping costs and you're paying all the things.
Are you doing the import thing with the codes and all that stuff?
No. So essentially what I'm doing is I have a chunk of what I make.
Yeah.
And I essentially buy back boards instead of taking money.
I got you.
And they just ship the boards with my other boards that I would be getting.
We'll talk about it off mic, and I'll tell you about brokering your own boards. It takes about 15 minutes to learn, and then you'll never have to worry about like taxes and all that sort of shit.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and then you can start going. You if you went around with just a sample of each board, you get shops to buy them, and then they put in the order, you get the commission. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
and then sell your samples through Board Dungeon or whatever.
The really hard part about it is that the boards are just expensive. You know, like we did have a distributor in the States, and it was going good, but it's really hard to get somebody to buy a $900 snowboard. You know, just plain and simple, and that's how much some of the boards cost. You know, and distributing them with shipping and everything else that's attached to it. I mean, the boards aren't cheap. They're made at same place as Gentem Stick and Moss and everything else. So they're the most like some of the most premier boards you could buy.
Sick boards.
It's hard when you're trying to sell a new brand, but you're also trying to sell a new brand that says death on it. Then you're also trying to sell a new brand that's $900 for the snowboard. So it's a tough combination.
$900 snowboard of death.
Yeah,
yes,
but luckily, you know, it's like there's all those like intermediate markets nowadays that you can go direct to consumer, and
100%, man.
Shops don't have to worry about carrying like a large overhead of boards and paying for all that because
it's a tough time for brick and mortar for sure. For sure. I got a couple of them supporting the show, and I love them. And I mean, it is what it is. Like if you live in a town where there's a shop, you want to support your local shop for sure.
For sure.
And and it's a catch-22 because if the board's going to be $900 out of the shop, you're not going to buy it. But if you can get it online for
that's the major catch. That's the major catch-22, right? Yeah. It's like you go in and a kid's like, hey, I want to try on these boots. And then they sit there and they flex them like, oh, they're really good. And then they go, oh, yeah, you know, we can heat mold them and everything here. And they're like, all right, thanks. And then they come back a week later with boots that they didn't buy from you to get them heat molded.
Totally.
And you're like,
I left the shop. I left working at the shop in 2007. That was already happening.
Yep.
Where somebody would be sitting, could I get a 8.5? Could I get a 9? And these 6 boots or whatever. they lace them all up, try them on, and then in the store order them online.
God.
You're like,
yeah, you don't want to piss them off because maybe they need that boa fixed,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
it's like fuck, like fuckers.
Yeah,
like,
it's tough.
But it is tough. And I mean, yeah, like you briefly brought up Board Dungeon for a sec, but Board Dungeon is kind of like, I'm still selling online snowboards, but I'm doing it I mean, yes, I guess technically I would be undercutting a shop, but none of the boards that I'm selling would be in a shop, right?
Yeah, dude. Of
so
course.
It's like,
so what is Board Dungeon? When did you start doing it? And
I started it in 2017, the year before COVID happened.
Yeah.
And essentially the idea was have a cool snowboard shop for people that want to buy cool snowboards, right? So like, if you wanted a limited board, or you wanted a death label board that you couldn't get in the US, or you wanted one of Ryan Paul's boards that was his, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That was the idea, you know, and also have like a hosting place for just good snowboards, you know. Facebook Marketplace is so like, oh, hey, like, will you take $20? Oh, hey, like, will you throw in the bindings for free? And I just wanted to find like a middle ground medium place to where you could kind of cut that out. Here's the price listed for. You could buy it if you want it. If you don't, it is what it is.
What platform did you launch it on?
I just did it straight to internet. I just built the website on Squarespace, and
incredible.
Yeah, I built a hosting page, and essentially the idea was to hope that it grew to a point where people could upload their own stuff, create their own profiles, essentially a snowboarder's eBay, right?
Yeah,
that was like my goal.
Cool.
I quickly learned that is very expensive to build a website like eBay. And I'm not a coder. I don't know how to build a thing. And especially when you start throwing money in and people having financial accounts attached to their own things. Yeah, man. It gets very tricky. So I started to try and like broker it all myself, which I still do. I just do it on a much smaller scale. It is by no means paying my bills. It's definitely just like a hobby and something that keeps me connected in snowboarding. But also, I mean, has super rare boards in there. I mean, right now I've got a Peterline Rainbow Division 23 that you can go buy right now if you want. You can go on there. But
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got some like super old like Tech 9 bindings that are like brand new. I mean, I've got like, it's kind of like a thrift store, but like with more niche things, if you will, you know, like a snowboarder's thrift store that they would like want cool old shit on, you know.
I love that. Yeah.
And even some new boards, you know, like, but nothing that's like brand new, like next year's, like, not to undercut. I'm not trying to like undercut anybody or
yeah, you have a killer eye for cool boards.
Yeah.
And you make them available at a good price, right?
Like, and if there's some local pros that have their boards that they're like, hey man, will you sell these for me?
Yeah, we were talking about this happens in different scenes, right? Like Kevin Sansalone set up a garage sale that Nick from Salmon Arms is keeping going. And it's like, I think they set up at the skate park. Yeah. And people people know from the community that, oh shit, it's this week. Yeah. Like, and it gets busy, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I essentially had the idea from the Milo Pro sale in Salt Lake, because I used to participate at it and sell my boards and do stuff, and it was a great opportunity, but it was a horrible opportunity if you didn't live in Salt Lake, because there's no way you're going to go, you know. But how cool would it be to go and buy Chris Grenier or Jeremy Jones snowboard from Jeremy Jones?
Yeah, I mean, it's insane.
Like, as a kid growing up, that would be the most nuts thing in the world. Yeah. So I kind of thought like, oh, how could I do that, or how could I curate it? And actually, funny enough, I sent handwritten letters to like 20 different people and was like, hey, this is my idea, if you're interested, and like mailed it to them, sent them like some new Board Dungeon stickers, like all this stuff, and like one person responded back.
Who was the one?
I don't even remember. They DM'd me, I think like God, who was it? They like DM'd me back and they're like, yeah, super cool. Like Scott Stevens actually was down, but it was just so like sweet. Super hard. You know, it's and again, running a business or attempting to start a business is a super steep learning curve. And the main thing that I realized is, and I've learned this with everything, like trying to rely on other people. It's not their job to to push your shit for you, right?
Totally.
Like, it's not theirs and it's not their fault. And as much as you would like to think, oh yeah, all these people are gonna be doing it, they're gonna be sending me boards to sell, they're gonna be posting their stuff online, like, it's just not the reality. And as much as I would have loved to have that happen, it just wasn't the case. And essentially, Board Dungeon was just built to be a snowboarder's snowboard shop, right?
Very cool.
And it still is, and we still have cool stuff on there, and I'm constantly updating it and putting new stuff on there. But it's mostly just all me. I'm not like relying on other people, you know.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it's other people's stuff, but I'm going and getting it and then selling it and hosting it and doing it for them and then paying them later for it or whatever the case may be. But
that's the way you have to end up doing it, right?
Yeah,
right.
So, and maybe one day, who knows? Maybe all of a sudden I'll be selling hundreds of boards every day, and I'll be able to pay for that coder to build my snowboarder's eBay.
It could happen. But you never know what's going to catch fire for sure.
No,
so the other thing that you're working on is Unstrapped, right?
Yeah.
And when and how did this idea come into existence? And maybe give us a bit of background for the listeners, because I think our listeners would want this kind of content.
I mean, I would love that. And I think, you know, in the last few years, there's been a ton of media that is free, that is available, but that isn't so structured, and that is a lot more niche-y, but also like you can kind of find what sort of snowboarding you want to listen to, right?
Totally.
You can find super in-depth interviews with the Bombhole.
Yeah.
You can find super broad but a little shorter format podcasts through yours. You can find all kinds of different things out there. You can find like board related posts from vloggers. You can find board reviewers. You can find trick tip guys. You can find anything, you know.
Totally.
But yeah, so I started Unstrapped with my buddy Jim, and the idea is to kind of grab a piece of all of it, still appeal to a general market of people, a little bit of everyone.
Yeah.
But also try to keep a little bit of like the corniness of like hi, so I'm so-and-so, and today we're reviewing the Never Summer Broadband or whatever. I don't know what their board models are or whatever. Right. But, you know, there's a lot of those guys.
There's quite a few people that got into it because the internet's blowing up.
Totally.
This kind of media is taking over for magazines.
For sure.
And, oh my God, like I haven't done it yet, but I'm supposed to watch these videos about how to make videos.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
I mean, it is.
And it's super cheesy what they're telling you to do.
I have found myself watching so many YouTube videos.
And like and subscribe this one right here. And
it
tell
gets
your
so
friends,
repetitive.
Make sure you go and do a review because that makes it get in front of everyone.
Yep.
And you got to obsess over thumbnails and you've got to do all these fucking things.
Totally. And have like a highlight blurb like, oh, snowboarder gets wrecked. And then you watch all 20 minutes of this fucking video and there wasn't a single person getting wrecked.
It's the
You're
worst.
like, oh my God.
I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. So there's a lot of content
terrible.
out there that just gets you.
Yeah.
And I don't know how or why it's in front of you. I was absolutely furious by just the idea of like, so you talked about the group on Facebook called Snowboarding.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that the one? It was snowboarders or snowboarding. There's a bunch
There's
of them.
Snowboard Trader. There's New Snowboard Trader. There's Vintage Snowboard Trader.
Yes.
And then there's snowboard. Yeah, there's No Rules Snowboarding. There's all these different things. And then there's this other one, Snowboarding, which I believe is the one that's like got the most.
85,000 people or something.
Yeah, but it's like, tomorrow's my first day. And what size board should I ride? And you're like, and then my God.
You see somebody on there that you know answering it. You go, dude, this is not our job.
Yeah.
Don't. But so.
Well, that's what my show is like, not necessarily to be for that layman of a person. Like, obviously, I'm still naming trick names. I'm still being like, dude, that was a fucked up, like, hardway frontside 270 pretzel out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, that person who's like, I'm looking at my first snowboard tomorrow, isn't going to know what that is.
Right.
And we want to start doing a little bit more, but again, like try to keep some of the cheesiness out of it. Keep some of the kooky, like, oh, I'm a pro snowboarder because I started my own snowboard company. Like, of course you are, dude. And because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, just like I do, earning your way in the snowboard industry is not something that just comes. Like, I didn't jump off buildings for years to have somebody else call themselves a pro snowboarder when they're not.
Yeah.
And to earn the respect of your peers and to earn the respect of your fellow real, like, and I'm not saying that none of these people aren't real snowboarders. Of course they are. But to earn the respect of your core snowboard culture and of those people, you need to put in time and effort and have, have shoveled landings for hours and hours on end, and shoveled backcountry jumps for hours and hours on end.
Right.
And fucking dug your buddy out of an avalanche. Right. And all of these things that a lot of these bloggers and YouTubers and people have never done in their entire lives.
Right.
And so it's trying to hit the nail on the head of aim for that demographic of just your everyday snowboarder and the layman who just goes up once a year, whatever, but also hitting the niche of, yeah, this dude can name every video part song from every single person.
Yeah.
So it's hard to try and find that balance, but
you're shooting for a lot there, but I from what I've seen, from what you've showed me, like, you're on the right track. You're a very personable dude.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And a very vibrant talker, like a great voice. And I think that you're gonna do fine. You've got lots of great ideas. And the main thing here is that the barrier to entry of this is very low.
Totally.
So we're gonna see a lot of stuff in the next few years. And
absolutely,
I'm gonna lose people because it's the exact same as you being on Tech9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You were on Tech9 because they liked you, they saw that they recognized your skill, but you weren't completely aligned with their MO.
Totally.
They wanted to change it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But, like, when you found your niche, when you find your guys where you're like, yeah, like Death Label, this is sick. Like, so I don't want any listeners of the show to be listening to my dumb show when there's something that appeals to them. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
That was why I started the show, was I was listening to shows that weren't quite there for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I'm just going to do my own show for a year or two until somebody else does a show that's better, then I'm just going to listen to that show.
Totally.
And then when they did with the bomb hole, I was like, oh man, you know what? That's not exactly what I want. I'm going to just, because what I want is for me to go snowboarding with people that I looked up to.
1,000%.
Yeah. So for me, going riding with Mike Hatchett tomorrow is going to be an all-time day for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited.
I still fan out over snowboarding still. I mean, I've been a pro snowboarder for 15 years, but when I see Kevin Jones in the parking lot, I'm still like, holy fucking shit, that's Kevin Jones.
Last trip, I rode with Kevin Jones. I'm watching him the same way with the Devon thing, where it's like, okay, he just did a little pop. Oh, look at that butter. Totally. It's so fresh. Like, that's like a little butter from that guy. It's like he's not even trying, and it looks so fucking good.
Dude, yeah, I mean...
There's no fear that he's going to catch his edge or anything like that. He's just, like, all in. He's dope.
I mean...
Fan of snowboarding. So, yeah.
I am the ultimate fan of snowboarding.
Yeah.
I always have been since my friend showed me Amped on his VHS player in his bedroom,
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to contribute a little more to that. I hope that I can help other people contribute to it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I really liked what Blaze said about the skiing stuff a little while back, because it's true, and in my opinion it's true. And I have nothing against skiers. I have nothing against it. But for every single person that picks up a set of skis is one less person that's picking up a snowboard. And true. I want my buddies to get paid, I want my friends to make the dollar. I don't want Rosignol skis to make it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's all it is, So I push snowboarding. I support snowboarding. I support snowboard brands. Like, I try to support anything I can. Like, even if I just need a regular hat, I'm going to go and buy a snowboard company that makes a hat, not
Very
just,
cool.
just to support it. And I hope that through our show, that we can encourage more people to do that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And
you're building culture.
I hope that people do it through your show, and I hope they do it through the Bomb one. I hope they do it through every show, because I think that all of them have a spot, and I think that every single one of them is great.
There's no lack mentality.
For sure.
Like, you brought up the Snowboard Project, and he comes from the old school of like Snowboarder versus Transworld, and oh my God, now they're owned by the same thing. But there was like legit, like underhanded bullshit going on behind the scenes, trying to like backstab each other. It was crazy shit.
Yeah.
And that's not happening in podcasts. I talk to Watchniak all the time. I love his show. I listen to the guests that, you know what I mean? I listen to the guests that appeal to me from his show. I listen to all snowboard podcasts. I listened to the Monday Mass the other day.
Yeah, I talked to Eastone a little bit ago, and he was like, oh, we were talking about wine or something. You know, it's like, and I think that that's great, and I know that there is no sort of bad blood between any of them, because I think at the end of the day, we all just want each other to do well.
Totally.
You know, and
as long as you're somebody that's like, you know, like I've never reached out to the, like, I don't even know what it's called, like the how-to videos.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I wonder if those like vloggers like see each other at Mount Hood and are like, oh fuck, there's Board Archive, and so is like, oh shit, fuck, oh he's already going in for the interview. Oh fuck, what are we gonna do? Oh shit, all right, my posse come over here, and my posse, because all those dudes have like staffs and shit now.
It's weird.
It's crazy. They got like 5 people that go and follow them everywhere and do all their stuff, and you're just
I get that they've got. I mean, they have momentum. They've got the...
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like, I'm a bit jealous, like, when people are going up to them on the hill and are like, oh, dude, you're so-and-so. It's like, I remember doing that, like, when I saw Charlie Marache at Breckenridge. You know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? Like, you know? But now it's like these vloggers and these people that, like...
You know what? There's probably people at Mount Seymour that have said that about me, because people will say, like, oh, you're the FNRad guy in the line, and there's, like, JP Walker is right there. You know what I mean? It's like, you should be going up to that guy saying, holy fucking shit, I can't believe I'm sharing the hill with this guy. So for me, I feel like I am just a shop guy. I'm still just a guy from a snowboard shop that gets to meet all these amazing people and see what they're doing. It's super fucking fun. And I love it when people come up to me and say, hey, that's cool. Yeah. But for the lift line, for the guys that are at Seymour watching that shit happen, rolling their eyes, I'm sorry to you guys. A lot of you guys listen to the show too, but it's
I mean, nothing against, and like I said, it's nothing against those people. Like, good for them. But there is definitely that little bit of jealousy where it's like, fuck, I got one. Well, like, you ready for the funniest story of all time?
Yes.
I'm on the chairlift. I think it was at Brighton, and there's a kid that I get on the chairlift. Of course I got on the chairlift with him. He has my board, my bindings, and I'm like, here we go, baby.
Here we go.
And like, I'm all masked up, and I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, those are some cool boards and bindings. He's like, they're all right. I'm like, oh, you don't really like him? He's like, I don't know. I won him in a raffle. I'm like, I was like, cool. Like, I was like, God damn it.
Ouch.
I thought this was it.
You
this
were
was like,
so excited.
Oh, this kid's going to be like, oh my gosh. No, that did not happen. Yeah. You won him in a raffle. So I hope he still has them and he enjoys them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so that kid doesn't even know that he met the guy who
he had no clue.
Because you
and of course, I wasn't like, oh, actually, it's mine. Like, no, of course not. I was
you want me to autograph that for you?
He was like, what are you getting on?
You want a picture with me for?
Right?
We could do this together.
Yeah, that was.
No,
that was hilarious. But it is still trivial. Like, when you do see, like, one of your things out there, you know, like, you're riding, you like look up and you see like your base of your board. You're like, that's cool.
Awesome.
That's cool.
That's got to be a really good feeling.
I mean, especially for something like Scott, like Stevens, who like literally every single person in line has his union bindings.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's awesome for him. Like, I'm so stoked. Like, I love it, and I love seeing my friends' stuff. You know, it's the best. It's cool.
I think that's my favorite thing is if I'm with someone and they get recognized. Like when we were in Banff. We were riding with Nico and Terrier.
Yeah, insane.
And so
insane.
So like some girls came over and they were like, "Can we get a picture with you?" And then Terrier was like, "Well, you're gonna want a picture with that guy." He's like, pointing at Nico.
Yeah,
and then
and
then they're like, "Holy fucking shit! Oh my god!" Yeah. So like that's more fun for me because that means the person that I'm with they have to deal with that thing.
Oh yeah, I went with Red Gerard one day. I went snowboarding with Red Gerard and Haley Langland at Boreal.
Yeah,
and there were some other people. There was a bunch of people. It was like early last season, And there are kids literally like every lift line, like, can we get a picture? Stop, can we get a picture? And then like Asher, their littlest sister.
Yeah.
She was wearing like one of Haley's Red Bull helmets. Like Haley was with us, but she was just looked normal, if you will, you know?
Yeah.
Like these people were asking Haley Langland to take a picture with them in red, right?
Yeah.
And then Asher is snowboarding with us and she's wearing a Red Bull helmet and they're like, oh, you ride for Red Bull too? Can we get a picture? And they're like, get out of here, dude. She's 11 years old. She was just borrowing Haley's helmet. But because Haley didn't have the Red Bull helmet on, they were like, oh, Haley must not be anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you're just like, what a trip. Like,
what a trip. Yeah.
I don't know what that would be like.
Yeah.
Very, very crazy for sure.
Well, you will know at some point because people are going to be like, oh, you're that guy. You're the Unstrapped guy.
Well, we'll see.
It's going to happen, man. I could see.
As long as people like, subscribe, and
pause the show right now and go like and subscribe to Unstrapped.
Yeah, right.
Right now. Let's see how many people we can. I can't even get people
that does
to do it
get
for
old.
my own thing.
It does get old, but it's like you have to do it. You know, it is.
What built all of these people that are listening and watching to this was I found the same thing as you, the Facebook groups. And so I would just post my episodes to like 10 of these groups.
Yep.
Facebook, when I started, I was able to just like click, post, and it would post to like 20 groups. I'd do that every week.
Yeah.
And it took 10 seconds.
Yep.
And then they made it this weird process where you
got to do one at a time.
And it was, I'd stop. Then I just was like, I'm going to just like boycott Facebook. And I have
when all the admins have to like approve it. And
was
if
fucked
like,
up.
if they don't think you're cool, they're never reposting your shit.
And
they're like,
I'm going to be honest. The growth of the show stagnated at that time a little bit. Like it wasn't like the
trajectory of it. Yeah.
It started to cool out a bit. And then I started thinking, it's probably because of bomb hole. But really, I kind of refused to engage in the social media thing in the way that makes sense because the bomb hole came out and they were able to target, if they were paying for ads, they were able to target customers that like snowboarding. Well, how do you know if someone likes snowboarding? Well, if they like our show, they definitely like snowboarding. If they like other shows that are out there, they like snowboarding. If they like Snowboarder Magazine or Transworld, they like, so like they're selling our subscribers and listeners to these guys for a price, if that is what they're willing to do. Because I never paid for an ad.
Well, I think the other thing that the bomb hole did that was really smart was they immediately started with engagement, right? So they said, hey, we have this thing called Name That Video Part. Like, comment, subscribe, and respond to and answer this thing, and you get a prize pack.
Bam.
And not only did they have an incredible lineup of guests right off the bat, which was great, and because they have access to them, right?
Yep.
Which is great for them. And again, I'm stoked on everything that they're doing.
I was never bummed on what they were doing.
No.
And it lit a fire under my ass to try and get better at what I was doing.
Totally.
I just spent a lot of time. And even on this trip, like I would look up, if I look up something with the bomb hole, it gives me a wild pang of anxiety that they get so many likes and.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they do. Their Instagram went from started to 25,000 followers instantaneously.
Yeah.
And again, the one thing that they also did really well is they had, as the engagement goes up, the algorithm works in your favor, right? And it continues to keep posting and popping up in more places.
Yep.
And as other people continue to repost and as cooler, like other people start to repost, it just spreads, right?
Yep.
And they did a really great job of doing that right from the beginning. And
obviously. Yeah. And
when all of the big brands, when Burton Snowboards is reposting Mark McMorris's bomb hole picture, Burton Snowboards has 450,000 followers.
Yeah.
Boom, they're all going to go straight to that page.
That's it.
And again, it goes back to that sort of those partnerships, that engagement. I mean, one of the big things that I'm working with now is like starting to work with sponsors. Is my big thing is like, well, I don't necessarily need a financial thing yet.
Yeah.
But as long as I have a partner that's going to like, hey, will you post this twice this week when we're highlighting your
This is the
section
most
of the show?
Uncomfortable part of it for me because like companies that do it well, Blaze Boot Camp, Andy like reached out and and Vans will push through media stuff for me to put in the feed, and I always wonder, am I doing it right? Is that is this what you wanted? The last one that I posted, Ollie Gagnon reached out and said,
sick.
Hey, where did you get that photo? Because it's mine.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I got it from like a Van sent out like a press release for us to like,
no
am
way.
I doing the right thing here? He's like, no, I just, yeah.
He's like, I was just curious. I just wanted to know forever. Yeah.
I just wanted to know where you got it from.
Yeah.
So for the first 6, 7 years, 8 years, even still now of the show, like someone will say, oh, you should have so-and-so on the show. And I go, oh, I'm trying. Halapoff. I'm like, oh, I'm trying. But I don't go like, you got his number to his friend.
Totally.
I just don't do it. And I also don't go like, great, Spencer O'Brien, you're on the show. Make sure you tag us and here's the post and push it out. And you're like a presenting partner of your episode or whatever. Yeah. I never did it. Yeah. So like any lack of engagement and lack of like audience growth exponentially, that's all on me. It's all my own fault.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it for that.
Totally.
This is for snowboarding.
100%.
When I stop, all of this stuff stays online indefinitely. And 20 years from now, if you want to know, hey, who the hell was Travis Rice? You could listen to a real conversation with him for an hour that you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. I get a little bit of it or whatever.
I think for somebody like me, and with starting with our own show, is obviously engagement is a huge thing, but I've also been so ingrained through my own snowboarding career that that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for some people to sit in front of a camera and try to like have a conversation. It's extremely hard for some people to walk up to somebody and introduce themselves and ask for an interview.
Oh, that's hard.
And after a long time of doing that sort of with snowboarding, because half of your career is now all involved in social media, you've almost been ingrained to do it already. Yeah. So now that you do it, like for me, it's like, I know I've got to do it, so let's just do it. And if we want engagement, if we want the show to do well, if we want things to happen, we need to check these X amount of boxes to try to get things going. That's
your expert knowledge that you put together. You went to University of Pro Snowboarding, so you know this stuff.
Yeah.
So use
or
it.
Tried.
And,
tried to carry it on and carry it over into something new.
So, I think one of the things that made my show successful is that I didn't have any measure for success. So I would call my show successful because I get to fly to Tahoe and ride powder.
Absolutely.
And I get to talk to people that I want to talk to. That's rad.
100%.
And I saw other podcasts that started that were so clearly like, this guy wants to make, he wants to quit his job really bad. And he wants to make this his job. And he's like, I'm here before everybody else, so I should be able to do this. And I think it's a struggle. So like you're in the middle here, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think the thing that'll fuel it is that anger with the fact that, hey, we should not be letting these guys who know how to like, subscribe, and follow. Hey, tag 2 friends and do this thing.
Put a bold yellow font across the
people that snowboarding should be in the hands of people that snowboard.
1,000%.
Especially the representation in the media.
That's, I think, exactly what it is. I don't want... And again, I think that those people all have a place, and I'm not sitting here shitting on any of them, because they are snowboarders for sure.
I'll shit on some of them. I've seen some board reviewers that can't ride. That's
for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that.
You're not allowed to tell people what board to pick when you can't make a fucking link some turns.
Totally. 1,000%. And there are some shows that are better than others, and there are dudes that do it better than others, and there are dudes that do it really tacky, and there are dudes that do it much better than others.
You know what, though? It's personal taste. Because I've talked with friends and said, I can't listen to this podcast. The way this guy does it, it's just like, it's nails on a chalkboard for my ears. And they go, I like that guy.
At the end of the day, it's getting people to snowboard, and that's what I am stoked on. Yeah, but you're right. Is that the representation that I want snowboarding to have? No. Do I want it to go? It's just like Shaun White. Do I think Shaun White's the greatest ever? No, but I think that what Shaun White did was got a shitload of people to go buy snowboards, and so that's great. Yeah. But is he representing snowboarding the way that I would like to see it? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, a lot of people went out and bought snowboards because of Shaun White. And at the end of the day, people are going out and buying snowboards because of these people. And
yeah, I guess. I mean, if they're watching that, they're getting the views, they've got the followers.
I don't think somebody that doesn't snowboard is like, oh, I really want to look up what this board is, unless they're thinking about buying it. And hopefully they do. And hopefully they buy it from a shop and not from the dude's web link to fucking whatever.
Yeah. I hear you, man. It's an interesting concept.
And time. I mean, it's just a crazy time.
Like I said in the beginning, I'm absolutely shocked with the barrier to entry being as low as it is. Like you could do a really good just iPhone show.
Totally.
With the technology that they have now with the
half
face
the videos
tracking
we do
is
just that. Yeah.
That's it. Oh, is that really? Because it's like 4K
we have
video.
We have our main show that is all done in the studio.
Rad.
Our weekly show. But then we also have like the way that I described it is like we have our table, right? And that table sits there and everything's good on the table. But that table needs to be supported by the legs that hold the table up. And the legs are, on YouTube now, like the shorts. And we also have like small little interview sections. And we also have like video reviews and all these different other things that are there throughout the week to support the main show once a week.
Very cool, man.
And that's kind of like, at least the way that I'm trying to take it. Or I keep saying me, it's we. We're trying to take it. But
I got you.
Yeah, it's still new. We're 11 episodes deep. It is weekly.
Are you happy with them? Like you personally? Are you feeling good about them? Because that's a big sign, man.
It's it's been this way for me with everything. Yes, I'm super happy with them. But I also, it's really hard, and especially in this culture and the way that things are nowadays, it's like, are you good enough if you're not getting 1,000 likes? Like it's, you know what I mean?
You gotta just not look at those.
Oh, you have. I mean, obviously I do, and I've learned a long time ago to look past it. But one of the biggest rewards of snowboarding was that I was good at it, right?
Yes.
And so when you have a show, and even with Board Dungeon, right? Like I thought Board Dungeon was just going to take off. It was going to do great. And now I'm happy with it. I love where it's at. It's small enough. I can manage it. I can take care of it. I have cool shit on there. And at first I had this crazy expectation of it to like take off and be this giant thing. I was like, oh, here we go. Got my next thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. And it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And so I don't have that same expectation with the show, but I am extremely happy with where it is.
Yeah.
And I know that the more people that are going to start watching it, the more people are going to be telling their friends to also watch it.
Oh, yeah.
And then it'll just, go from there. And I also think that going into, like right now, we're just a YouTube show. We don't have it in podcast form.
Yeah.
And the show is built to be watched on YouTube, but I try to narrate tricks and talk about the videos that we're watching and the things that are on it so that it can be translated over easily into a podcast form.
Yeah, do it.
And I think that that'll, help it grow a lot also,
I think so. Yeah, Eastone told me that the podcast numbers and the YouTube numbers, they fluctuate in this weird way.
Yeah.
Like where people...
I've talked to Eastone about it too. Yeah. He's like, why aren't you on podcast form? And I'm like, we're getting there. It's just, we both got brand new kids, man. And we're doing a whole bunch of stuff, still trying to snowboard, still trying to do these things. And, I mean, as you know, editing a 45, sometimes hour and a half long show doesn't just happen. The editing software isn't quite there yet.
You got to get to the
make
2X
it happen overnight.
2X. I watch a lot of it when I'm editing on 2X now, but it took me, I don't know how many episodes, 8. So I've only edited 8 episodes at this point. And you were talking about expectations. I have the craziest expectations. Like I remember being at contests where I got 17th or 35th or 97th,
sure.
whatever.
Don't even make finals.
Right.
Yeah.
Where when they were announcing the winners, because it was like a one run thing, like a race. They said the third. I go, oh wow, I might have got second or first. And then they say the second.
So
I go,
true.
I can't believe I won the whole
this
fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then they say the first, and I go, what?
Yeah.
I guess I got fourth. And then I go look,
and they're like, nice try, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm like 27th or whatever. And so
you always pay attention to your own stuff the most, right?
Totally. I was like, when we get these videos up on YouTube and people get to see the actual thing, there's going to be thousands of downloads, right? You'll see
Yeah.
Dow. And it was like 40 or something. I'm looking at them going, 40? What the fuck? He goes, you've only got 120 subscribers.
Yeah.
I go, well, how do I, what? But how do I have so many listens on the podcast?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, well, you have subscribers there, but you don't have any subscribers on YouTube. You got to start asking the listeners to subscribe.
I know.
I'm like, oh, God.
It's weird and it's different, but you know, we all thought the same thing when Instagram came out. Like, oh, we really have to post like photos here and there. And then all of a sudden it was being put into your contract. Like, you need to post X amount.
That's
next
insane.
thing you know, it's like you're getting paid to post content. And now you have an entire market and a whole entire group of people that aren't even real snowboarders, but they're getting paid by snowboard brands to model their shit because they have 200,000
Spencer
followers.
O'Brien was the first to bring it up to me. And she said that you've got models standing on snowboards they can't even snowboard.
For sure.
And major brands are looking like seriously at them.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. It's like, it's really hard to say because if you're that business, what makes the most sense, right? And if you're a business, your goal is to make money. It's like, am I going to give this person 10 grand a month and endless snowboards and endless budget and endless shit to get on camera in front of however many maybe people watch X Games for 12 seconds during their run? Or am I going to pay this person $2,500 to take this one picture and then repost it? And it's going to go to 1 million people.
Yeah.
And so it's like, which do you get more bang for your buck for?
This stuff breaks my brain for sure.
It's awful. But it's like, from a business standpoint, that would be the business move to make.
And from the core person standpoint, Kearns pointed it out. Like, literally, you're posing. Like
1,000%.
You're posing.
Yeah.
You're a poser. You're like,
what's the term? Culture vultures.
Is that what they
the culture vultures that are like, the trying to make a buck off of like the coolness of snowboarding. Right?
Well, the bottom line is, and I hope that my instinct on this is right. I think the listeners of this show actually snowboard.
For sure.
Like, this is about snowboarding for me. This isn't about likes and follows and that shit. And posting content that's fake, like what you're going to see from me tonight because I hiked up that dumb thing.
Yeah, but it's about,
but I
from
had
somebody
a day
like
to back
you,
it up.
But from somebody like you,
right.
that you saw that and you said that looked fun, and that's what I want to go snowboarding on today. And so to the people that care about snowboarding, that's intriguing, right?
Sure.
And it's just like, why do people watch Scott Stevens nose butter a picnic table? Like, that wasn't the craziest, wildest, hardest thing, but it was cool because that's what Scott Stevens is doing, right?
Hell yeah.
And that's the whole point of it, That's why I fell in love with snowboarding. I didn't fall in love with snowboarding because so-and-so won an X Games run. I fell in love with snowboarding because Mark-Frank Montoya did the most fucking badass backside 180 I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, and because of how cool I thought snowboarding was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's why I liked it. And I think that the biggest thing that snowboarding should do is, I hate to say like this term, but like, is to make it super fucking cool again. Because that's why people wanted to do it, was because it was the cool thing.
Yeah.
And
I think those cool things go in cycles, man.
They totally do.
Like, if you look at skateboarding and snowboarding, there's these cycles. And snowboarding is intricately linked to skiing, which is fucked up. So there's like...
For sure.
Right? So like, it would be like if skateboarding was also linked to like roller skating or rollerblading. They're not. They're
not
totally separate.
Yeah.
But so it is
Well,
cyclical.
I think that, I mean, that also has to do with supporting brands that, like... supporting a Dinosaurs Will Die instead of a K2, things like that.
Yeah.
It's just, it's two separate things, and obviously it's not like tomorrow everyone's going to be like, oh, no, I'm no longer buying a brand that also makes skis,
right?
Which in some people's perfect world, that would be great. I mean, shit, for parts of my life, I would have thought that way. And I even, like, when I didn't have any sponsors and I was looking for new ones at the time, I made a very conscious decision that I didn't want to ride for a brand that had any affiliation with skiing. Like, none. Like, my goggle company had no affiliation with skiing. My board company, like, nothing.
You're
had
in
an
good
affiliation.
company here. I feel bad about it because it's not the right thing to do, but it's like, Look, I never skied.
Well, at that point, I was a consumer. So the right thing to do was
yeah.
anything that I wanted to do. And for me, that's support snowboard brands.
I like supporting my friends, and there's enough of them that are doing things. And hopefully, if any of them are listening to this, they feel like I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is.
I mean, we did put a K2 gyrator in the background. So what are we even talking about? But
that's true.
Yeah. It's
just an era board. It just throws back to idiotic ads and shit. That was awesome. The K2 team has been killer over the years, too.
For sure.
They supported good people.
For sure.
But they're, a crazy part of an insanely big corporate monster.
Absolutely. But they've also been a brand that's done a lot for snowboarding, too. So you can't take away.
Yeah. But I definitely have the purist thing where it's like, if I'm going to pick between a brand that makes skis and snowboards, or ski brand, heritage ski brand that makes snowboards, and my buddy Rob, who's building them 10 minutes from my house.
For sure.
Like Smoke and Jay. Like, hey, if you are exposed to Smoke and Jay boards and you are thinking about buying a board, support that guy, man. That guy's fucking dope.
Yeah.
Dynos, like...
Yeah, Genevieve. I mean, it also helps when you know the guys, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
Keep my friends in business, please.
Yeah. And if I have a choice between going out and buying this or going out and buying that, I know which one I'll choose. And that doesn't mean that you have to choose it or whoever has to choose it. It just means that that's what I'm choosing.
Well, when you're an influencer, then you're telling people what your opinions are and you're influencing their...
Yeah.
If I can influence
imagine if somebody was influencing, telling people how great, like... I don't know, some ridiculous technology that is out there nowadays, right? Like a Gilson snowboards with like the ridiculous like bubble base technology, whatever they're using. Like now you're just influencing a bunch of people to go and buy terrible, bad shit. You're like, fuck. Like, but people are going to believe it,
Right.
And I guess that's the one great thing about having a team. You don't see Gilson with a stacked team because it'd be really hard to fucking do some of the tricks that people do nowadays.
Well, that is...
with no edges.
So here's the thing. That is the essence of the entire equation, is that fixed bindings has the best ratchet, I think, of any binding.
For sure.
Because Jay Bros is a nerd who went and found the raddest, and he
built a machine that'll test it 20,000 times or whatever.
And that actually, that turns into something that fucking works. Yeah. Awesome. So like, if I'm going to give anyone, advice to snowboard, right? I'm not going to be coming at it in a cheesy way. I'm going to say, look, if you're riding fucking sports socks and your $500 boots, you're blowing it.
Yeah.
Go get good socks, And so like if Stance tells me to say Stance, I'll try them out. I'm riding Beneath first layer.
Yeah.
They're great. They're awesome. So like go buy Beneath.
Yeah.
Or, but at the bottom line is make sure you're riding first layer.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what brand it is.
Yeah, I'm always running that shit.
Yeah, you need to rock first layer. You're not wearing jeans or sweatpants under your shit. Come on, guys. So, I love shouting out people like Jason Bros. Because it comes from a passion. He's been doing it a long time, and there's integrity there.
Yeah.
And so the equation I was talking about is that if you want to innovate, you need to have riders out there testing your shit. That's the only place that innovation happens.
It's the only place where you can trust people too, I mean, sure. And I get this asked a lot. And again, another really awesome sort of freedom I had when picking new sponsors or, trying to find new sponsors. I got to reach out to the companies I wanted to,
And
Fix was one of them because I liked them,
Good.
And when somebody asks me, like, not only what bindings do I ride, but what bindings should they go by, I tell them that because they're what I wanted and they're what I want in the first place. I'm not riding them because I get a paycheck from them that tells me I have to tell everyone that.
Right.
I ride Death Label boards because they're my favorite boards. I ride fixed bindings because they're my favorite bindings. I ride outerwear that I want to ride because it's the stuff I want and because I like it. Same with goggles. Like, I've been riding Beresford's Dank Shades goggles for years because I love them and they're awesome. Like,
that's dope.
If I wanted to, I could go buy a pair of Oakleys or I could go buy whatever I want to. But I like his goggles because I'm supporting a friend and I'm also love the way they look and they work. I don't need something else. And that's how I am with like all of my sponsors, like Stinky Socks has been a sponsor of mine, like one of my longest actually. And I love the brand. I love their story. And I could buy snowboard socks from anywhere. I could get snowboard socks pretty much from anywhere. I could go to fucking Ross and go and buy pair of merino wool stance socks for $7.
Right.
But I would rather ride my buddy's socks because of their story and because what they do and because they're just fucking awesome.
And they work.
You know what I mean?
Right. All right, let's wrap it up just because the memory cards are at the end of the memory.
Dude, for sure.
Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for
Thank you so much for having me, man.
That was 2 hours just went by like that. That
I
was
know,
epic,
it did.
Bro. I wish you all the best on Unstrapped. And
I really appreciate it, man.
If you want us to push out stuff through our feed, just, hit me up and I'll do
Vice
it.
Versa.
Oh,
Vice versa.
Okay, well, you're getting a big, steady stream of my shit. No.
Hey, no, I've been
fun.
a big fan of yours for a minute, and so
Thanks,
I
homie.
I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah,
and
this has been really fun.
Thank you so much, man.
Hopefully we get to go shred at some point.
Dude, yeah, I would love to. I wish you were here a little longer, but that's
next time we'll definitely make the time to go do it.
Definitely, man.
Killer.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
dude.
Andy. FNRad shoutouts this week to Andrew Brewer and his wife Jess and their son Alden for having me into their home for this interview. Be sure to follow Unstrapped on YouTube, follow, and share Andrew's Instagram account, and check out Board Dungeon. There's seriously awesome shit going on there. Special thanks this week to Grouse Mountain for creating space for the space creator himself. Crush came up to Canada, and we recorded an episode of FNRad, which will be out later this season. And thank you to all you listeners out in podcast land. Shout out Eric Heinman for listening to every episode of the show. What an honor. I'll be sending a little something out to Gibson, Colorado for you, man. Thank you for the loyalty. Be sure to come back next week for more FNRad snowboarding presented by Vans and produced by SIA Productions.